don't know. We think that it probably comes from variations that we find in that parental genome. Research in Canada and elsewhere has shown that up to 14% of the genes that we have at birth differ from those of the parents. So part of the differences that we find in reincarnation research may be in those variations, or they may very well be in the 90 to 95% of what we call junk DNA, because we have not been able to identify the functions of those DNA strands and patterns that are there. We know they're there, but we know that they don't seem to be affecting the kinds of development that we are able to test in our genetic system today. So the real issue here is whether or not reincarnation involves a process that is separate from the biological reproduction process. And the evidence to date suggests that there is something beyond the biological inheritance of a set of genes involved. At this point in our evidence, it's quite clear that physical features can show up in the person's current genotype and how that's manifest in his phenotype as he grows up, which are different from and are not found in the 46 chromosomes that are passed down by the mother and father in the natural process of reproduction. In some instances where children are born and considered to be reincarnations of their grandparents, you could assume that, well, the similarities came through the parental genome. But we have enough cases where you don't have that similarity and you don't have that parental phylogenetic tree pathway to tie to that previous lifetime. There has to be another mechanism, and that's why we call it the soul genome rather than simply the genome of 46 chromosomes. And when you see variations in the current genome of an individual born of a mother and a father who are of a particular race or cultural orientation, the child may very well have features that are not part of that same genome that the parents passed on. And we say, where did that come from?
A blonde-haired, fair-skinned baby has been born to a black Nigerian couple, and many are speculating over what's behind this tiny mystery. We're looking at perspectives from The Sun, the BBC, and Babel. There have been suspicions. Some said the wife might have had an affair or that the baby had accidentally been switched at the hospital, but those possibilities have been shot down by doctors. Britain's The Sun sat down with the couple.
It was being surprised, at the same time happy to have a new baby, but it was still confusing that we have a blonde, in a complete black family. I had to ask questions because I never knew actually what it is about. And I'm sure, personally, that it's my kid.
You never in doubt.
I'm sure it's my kid, but I don't know why she's blonde.
The BBC suggested answers. There are 3 possible explanations: dormant white genes, which entered both of her parents' families long ago, a genetic mutation unique to her, or albinism. But the couple says doctors have ruled out albinism and are leaning toward the possibility of dormant white genes in one of their families.
to such an extreme that within one generation, I will show you the proof in this presentation, that a creature can give birth to something that becomes an entirely different species than the creature that it came out of the womb from. And that there is nothing more that needs to be done to create that energetic change, but to simply zap the embryo with a light wave that comes from another embryo that has the genetic pattern that you wish to transfer. The only way that this makes any sense is to begin seeing DNA as susceptible to quantum wave effects. Because we were running out of time. So we've already seen now that you have DNA that has been created out of the ether. Same species at both poles. You've seen the little guys that grow in the test tube from nothing more than distilled water and sterilized sand, and there's this little scum that grows on top, and you look at it under a microscope, and boom, here's these little critters. What about DNA changing from one form to another? What about transforming DNA from one form to another so that you have the given genetic material of one species and it transforms into something else? Well, Conchazin is the guy here. And so what he does in this anatomically correct diagram is he's got your duck over here. You can see the feathers and the head. Oh, there he is. And over here you have a perfectly described chicken. Obviously, I'm being facetious. And what you have here is these little funnels that are built into the side of a little pentagonal box. And he zaps this little duck with microwaves, and all the microwaves go through these copper pipes from one room to another. If you talk in here, you'll hear it in here. It's air that can pass through. He's zapping it with microwaves, which are not going to kill the duck. It just kind of zaps his energy field enough to make it resonate, make the DNA resonate. And over here you have a chicken that has eggs in its womb. So now I want you to look at the physiology of a duck. Notice the long beak, the webbed feet, the longer neck, the larger internal cavity of organs. Whereas a chicken, by comparison, this is not what they looked like when they came out, by the way. That's just to fool you. I actually found this when I was looking for the picture of the chicken with the webbed feet, and then I found him with ducks, or her with ducks, and I'm like, wow, isn't that a synchronicity? So anyway, look, shorter beak. No webbing between the toes. This is what actually hatched. These are called duck hens. You see webbing between the toes. You see this strange-looking head. We can get a better look at it here. The eye's position is different. You get the duck-shaped head, the longer beak, the webbing between the toes. Now here's the stats. He zapped a total of 500 eggs, 480 of them hatched. 80% had a flat duck-shaped head like you just saw. 90% had the shift in the position of the eyes. 90%. And 25% had webbing appear between the toes. This is a Chinese scientist who did this. It's an amazing piece of research. You go a virus is a frequency-based entity. As you see in my 2012 Enigma video, polio, rubella, all these various viruses have geometric structure, which is wave particle structure. Geometry can flip around into the time field and become a wave. Kuzначiev, which you're going to see in this presentation, proved that the wave structure of a disease is enough to infect healthy tissue in a hermetically sealed container. You can take the wave structure of a disease, zap it through a hermetically sealed container, and have those cells inside the container catch the disease.
Greetings, viewers, and welcome.